Everything went exactly according to plan, dictated by the cold calculus of market research, up to and including the moment the entire franchise ended. The only unexpected part was the incidental creation of a pop culture icon that would endure and inspire long after the last episode of the TV series aired and the last action figures shipped. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of She-Ra, Princess of Power. Thank you to 80stees.com for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below and use code TOYGALAXY to get 30% off your order today. 80stees.com started off as the source for t-shirts inspired by all things pop culture from the 1980s, but there's more to the 80s than just the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 70s, the decade that paved the way for the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 90s, the decade that carried on the legacy of the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 2000s, because the 80s isn't just a decade, it's a state of mind. Whether your interests are laser focused on one thing, say movies, there's plenty of choices from Jaws to Shaun of the Dead. If your interests bounce around, they've got shirts from cartoons to video games, superheroes to music and wrestling. From Transformers to Dungeons & Dragons, Gollum to Ron Burgundy, Darkwing Duck to Powerpuff Girls, you'll find something you love. Click the link below and use code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order today. Again, that's code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order. Thanks again to 80stees.com. This video is about the original She-Ra, Princess of Power. We will briefly touch on subsequent appearances in media, but just barely. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power will get its own video in the future. Please focus your praise or outrage accordingly. She-Ra, Princess of Power is a 93-episode animated series and a line of action figures that first appeared in 1985. It was a spin-off / continuation of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series and line of action figures from just 2 years earlier. She-Ra is the most powerful woman in the universe. Wielding the Sword of Protection, she leads a rebellion to free Etheria from the grip of the evil tyrant Hordak and his army, an army that she was once a member of. Born as Princess Adora to King Randor and Queen Marlena, the royal family of Eternia, as a baby she was kidnapped by Hordak, separating her from her twin brother Prince Adam, who himself would one day become the wielder of the Sword of Power, protector of the secrets of Castle Grayskull, the most powerful man in the universe, He-Man. Hordak raised Adora under mind control and trained her to be a force captain in his army, until one fateful day when she was rescued by her brother, reunited with her parents, and discovered her true identity. Now, with the Sword of Protection granting her the powers of Grayskull, she can transform from Princess Adora into She-Ra and fight in the Great Rebellion to defeat Hordak and bring peace to Etheria. She-Ra, Princess of Power was created by the toy company Mattel and the animation studio Filmation, a partnership that had already proven successful with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Mattel was founded in 1945. In 1959, they introduced the world to Barbie, a fashion doll that propelled them into the top tier of global toy sales. Barbie's success was due to the genius of the business model. Sell a single doll, supplement it to infinity with different interchangeable outfits, accessories, then advertise on television, which was unheard of for toys at the time. The other side of Barbie's success was what she represented to the children who were playing with her. A hip, young, modern, independent girl who could do anything she wanted to, or be anything she wanted to be. From fashion model to homemaker to astronaut to athlete to firefighter, Barbie encouraged kids to imagine a life beyond the limitations of their current world, to subvert the expectations of society and dream of better, brighter tomorrows where being feminine and being powerful could coexist. Power is a concept that Mattel focused on in 1982 when they created Masters of the Universe. He-Man was developed as a personification of raw physical power, lightning channeled through a sword directly into his veins, creating muscles on top of muscles. He-Man became a pop culture icon, and the entire industry again followed Mattel's template for how to use television to sell toys, because this time Mattel partnered with Filmation to release a daily syndicated cartoon called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. However, it was criticized by some for being a series of 22-minute commercials for Mattel toys, as opposed to having any artistic merit or entertainment value of its own. Despite those concerns, Mattel and Filmation continued to profit from a licensing bonanza, selling everything from shampoo to bedsheets. Artistic critiques aside, no one can argue that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe wasn't good at what it did, putting eyeballs on TV and ringing cash registers. Retailers were clamoring for more He-Man. In fact, more He-Man than Mattel could deliver. Mattel literally could not make the toys fast enough to fulfill orders that were coming in. At its peak, Masters of the Universe was short shipping product because they had no other choice. Between 1982 and 1985, Masters of the Universe made billions and took over from Barbie as the highest selling, most popular brand at Mattel. And that did not sit well with the Barbie team, but it did provide an opportunity for a sister product. They went back to their market research and identified new ways to expand the market for Barbie. They looked for new genres for Barbie to explore, or if a new genre went against who Barbie was as a corporate icon, new brands that could complement Barbie and bring those sales back to her one way or another. As Janice Varney Hamlin, former director of worldwide marketing for fashion dolls at Mattel, said in a 2015 interview on He-Man.org, quote, "She-Ra was born as a strategy in creating a flanker brand for Barbie. After looking at the fashion doll market, I noticed that when competitive fashion dolls entered the fashion doll arena, the entire fashion doll category expanded. And when they left the category, Barbie business gobbled up those extra dollars." As much as Barbie existed to empower kids and inspire imagination, there were things she just could not do. Barbie could date, she could even plan a wedding, but she could not settle down and have a family. So Mattel introduced Barbie's neighbors, the Hart family, in 1985, and the kids that came into the market via the Hart family would find their way back to Barbie. As kick-ass as it might have been, Barbie could not be an Amazon space warrior in a fantasy adventure series. She could not swing a sword, fight a dragon, or transform into a superhero by shouting a magical incantation that channels ancient otherworldly spirits. Someone was going to have to do that for her. Meanwhile, after nearly 2 full seasons of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Filmation realized that more episodes didn't necessarily mean more profit. They needed to find a way to engage a wider audience because it was more cost-effective to continue to sell the reruns of episodes they already made, rather than pouring money into more new episodes. Mattel and Filmation were both looking at the same market research data. The numbers said that as much as 1/3 of the viewers were girls. They were playing with the toys and wanted to see more powerful characters like Teela, Evil Lyn, and the Sorceress. Filmation wanted to start making a new show. Mattel wanted to grow the He-Man brand by directly engaging that 30% of the audience that was 4 to 10-year-old girls. It all made sense in theory, but would it undermine the conceit of Masters of the Universe that was so appealing to 4 to 10-year-old boys that they have the power? Filmation stopped production on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe after 130 episodes and started working with Mattel to transition to a new series. Filmation had always been a partner in the creation of the characters and mythology behind He-Man. For She-Ra, they would be responsible for even more. At Mattel, both the girls team and the boys team were working on the end goal, a fantasy adventure hero for girls. The girls team was exploring the engineering and marketing of the toy based on 2 of their traditional play features, brushable hair and interchangeable clothes, and combining that with action figure scale and play pattern. The boys team took their cues from Teela, who was already a powerful woman in the mythology, and developed a literal sister named Leela. Twin sisters separated at birth. Leela is the most powerful woman in the universe, protector of all that is good, beautiful inside and out, strong inside and out. She has magical powers, including a staff that acts as a wand which she can use to sprinkle glitter dust on the bad guys to freeze them. She has a friendly snake friend who can travel up and down her staff to warn her of danger, and she's dressed in a jeweled helmet and gold bracelets as she rides her mighty silver-winged reindeer. That concept was approved and then handed off to the girls' team, but the only thing they actually needed from the boys' team was the previously established mythology of the Masters of the Universe brand and access to their placement on retail shelves. Thank you very much.
Instant Winner Game strikes again, and you can win action figures of He-Man, She-Ra, their friends, their foes, and more. To play, look for Instant Winner wrappers inside packs of Bubble Yum Bubblegum, or send for free game pieces to Bubble Yum, P.O. Box 3362, Syosset, New York 11775. Millions will enter, thousands will win. Prizes must be claimed by December 31st, 1986. You could be a winner with Bubble Yum.
Instead of developing another Teela, the girls' team started from a concept of power. Like they had with Barbie, they wanted a character that was going to project power in ways that weren't obvious physical traits like rippling muscles, heavy battle armor, or distressed facial expressions. As Erica Scheimer of Filmation put it in an episode of The Toys That Made Us, quote, "A lot of focus was put on making her unique from He-Man, individual, not just female He-Man. One of the most important things was to respect and show what is female. We gave her different powers that were more reflective of female sides." I don't want to get into saying, well, oh wow, these are boys' traits and these are girls' traits, and we didn't want to pigeonhole, but what we wanted to showcase what is more inherently a girl kind of thing. Filmation writers Larry DiTillio and J. Michael Straczynski, who had worked on Masters of the Universe, developed the Bible for new characters and concepts beyond Masters of the Universe. Mattel designer Justine Dancer created a new look that was completely different from what the boys team came up with. This character would now be He-Man's long-lost sister, Princess Adora, connecting her to the existing mythology, and equal to He-Man through blood and magical inheritance. The search for a name was difficult. Like He-Man's he, they wanted a pronoun in the name. Leela, Sheila, Hera, She-Ra. Several people at Mattel have claimed that they came up with the final name, including writer Larry DiTillio, who said the name She-Ra came to him simply by flipping He-Man's he to she and combining it with Ra, an ancient Egyptian word that evoked godliness. And just to be safe, Mattel took a precautionary step and purchased the rights to a fantasy novel by Barbara Hambly for $25,000, potentially because the subject matter might encourage another toy company to license the rights and enter the market, but definitely because the main character's name was She-Ra and she was fighting a war of independence against an evil wizard. The rest of She-Ra's cast was designed as a partnership between Mattel and Filmation, Filmation creating characters and Mattel producing toys based on those new concepts. Hordak was created by Filmation as a way to give She-Ra a villain of her own. To continue with Skeletor would have relegated She-Ra to cleanup duty, not to mention it would have been evidence of He-Man's failure. And while He-Man's fight for Eternia was about defending his family and his home, She-Ra went to war against a tyrant who had stolen and brainwashed her as a child. Depending on where you lived and how often you went to the movies, your first exposure to She-Ra could have been in the toy aisle or the movie theater. She-Ra Princess of Power toys started hitting shelves in early 1985. Just like Masters of the Universe toys, there were mini-comics packed with the Princess of Power toys that established the mythology. Kids were introduced to She-Ra, Hordak, and Catra for the first time, and learned about She-Ra's secret connection to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a storyline that would be told in much greater detail on the big screen in March of 1985. The mini-comics also depict the vestiges of a play feature that was built into the toys, promoted in the toy commercials, but abandoned for the Filmation animated series. She-Ra wore a large face-framing tiara as Princess Adora that could be turned upside down and used as a mask when she transformed into She-Ra, hiding her face, something that the kids didn't actually like in market testing. He-Man and She-Ra, The Secret of the Sword was part one of a year-long effort to hand off the franchise from He-Man to She-Ra. Produced by Filmation, the movie was the first 5 episodes of She-Ra, Princess of Power, cut together as a 90-minute feature. Part 2 of the transition from He-Man to She-Ra was a team-up between the two series in daily syndication, He-Man airing the final half of the second season's worth of episodes, She-Ra kicking off with her first 65. She-Ra, Princess of Power introduces the new mythology going forward, building off the previously established stories from Masters of the Universe, now on Etheria, but always within reach of Eternia via magical portal, battling Hordak and his evil horde with new villains like Catra, Mantenna, Grizzlor, and Leech. Assisted by her horse Spirit, who transforms into Swiftwind, She-Ra fights for freedom alongside friends and warriors like Madame Raz, Bo, Glimmer, Castaspella, Frosta, and Perfuma. And to help address any concerns about the violence in the series, each episode features both a moral lesson at the end and an opportunity for kids to keep an eye out for Lookie, who hides in the background during the show. Princess Adora and She-Ra were voiced by Melendi Britt, who also played Catra, Castaspella, Mermista, Jewel Star, and Octavia. Hordak was played by George DiCenzo, who also played Bo, Seahawk, Dylamug, Snoutspout, Tongue Lashor, and others. Linda Gary and Diane Pershing took on multiple characters as well. Filmation head Lou Scheimer, as he did on Masters of the Universe, provided lots of voices. Lou's daughter Erica was Flutterina, Frosta, Perfuma, Lookie, and more. John Irwin was back to play He-Man and Beastman, while Alan Oppenheimer returned to play Skeletor, Cringer, Battlecat, and Man-at-Arms. The third and final part of the handoff to She-Ra was He-Man and She-Ra, a Christmas special, which we have covered here on the channel. Airing in December of 1985 after Masters of the Universe had already aired its final new episode, the brother and sister duo come together to celebrate the holiday season and learn more about Queen Marlena's heritage here on Earth. At that point, the franchise, the power belonged to She-Ra. Through December of 1987, She-Ra, Princess of Power aired a total of 93 new episodes, while Masters of the Universe was airing reruns. The brand synergy was further strengthened by the He-Man and She-Ra Power Tour, a live-action stage show spectacle that traveled to arenas in 1987, helping kids believe in the power of Grayskull and embracing She-Ra as a part of it. There was a lot of licensed merchandise, none more important than the toys. From 1982 to 1985, He-Man maintained a substantial presence in toy aisles. That sales power was what convinced Mattel to co-brand the new fantasy adventure hero line developed by the girls' team. He-Man helped get She-Ra on the shelves, but once there, the stores didn't really know what to do with her. She-Ra, Princess of Power, was developed as a toy line for girls in keeping with the expectations of demographically based marketing at the time. Pink packaging, soft colors, sparkles, a brush or comb accessory, and changeable outfits. Through 1987, Mattel released a full line of figures from She-Ra to Catra, Peekaboo to Mermista, Sweet Bee, Spinnerella, Bo, and Lookie, as well as additional fantastic fashions, alternate outfits to keep your figures looking good. There were horses like Swiftwind, Arrow, Storm, and even Catra's Pink Lion, Claudine, vehicles like Butterflyer and Sea Harp, and She-Ra's Crystal Castle and the magical Crystal Falls playsets. But She-Ra was also technically an expansion of the existing Masters of the Universe line of action figures, except that Masters of the Universe were packaged in the iconic Exploding Rocks blister cards in the boys section of the toy department.
Hordak and the evil Horde are out to get He-Man and Skeletor. Hordak, Hordak. Skeletor, Skeletor.
Adding to the confusion was that some of the characters from She-Ra, including Hordak, members of the Evil Horde, and the Fright Zone, were sold and promoted as part of the Masters of the Universe line. Some stores kept the two lines separate as dictated by the strict polarized marketing strategies of the day. Some stores put them together in the same aisles, and others split the difference with a shared display halfway between the two. The very idea that a girl might want a Grizzlor or a boy might want a Swiftwind was still beyond the pale for the time, a literal, laughable, unimaginable scenario. She-Ra, Princess of Power was canceled before hitting a full 130 episodes the way Masters of the Universe did, but She-Ra was dealing with a completely different television and toy landscape than He-Man did, mostly because of He-Man. Toy lines at the time had a shelf life of a few years at most. Masters of the Universe began in 1983 and had already made significant changes before She-Ra even arrived in 1985. Mark Taylor, the lead designer on Masters of the Universe, had himself left Mattel after becoming disillusioned with the brand, feeling it had become watered down. Mattel lost their corporate shirts when Mattel Electronics had to be bailed out by $240 million in venture capital money in 1984. He-Man saved the day initially, but ended up oversaturating the market. Masters of the Universe went from $400 million in sales in 1986, then plummeted to just $7 million in 1987. She-Ra's fortunes were tied to He-Man for better or for worse, and the boys team at Mattel thought that was the problem. Dave Capper, former director of marketing for boys toys at Mattel, said in an episode of the Netflix series The Toys That Made Us, quote, "We started to get feedback that if an 8-year-old boy had been playing with He-Man for 2 or 3 years and now his sister was saying, 'I have the power,' that there was something that just didn't feel as cool." To which Janice Varney Hamlin, former director of worldwide marketing for fashion dolls at Mattel, said, quote, "That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard of." Certainly, one of the main reasons the Masters of the Universe brand and everything related to it tanked in 1987 was the failure of the feature film that opened August 7th, 1987. With a budget of around $22 million, it only made $17 million at the box office. For more on that, check out our video, The History of Masters of the Universe and How It Helped Bankrupt a Studio. She-Ra was originally intended to appear in that box office disaster. Scenes were written and William Stout designed her costume. Director Gary Goddard cut her appearance for purposes of storytelling clarity and also budget. Had a sequel been produced, she likely would have been part of it. He-Man was rebooted in 1990 as The New Adventures of He-Man. He-Man is blasted into the future to defend the planet Primus from Skeletor and the evil mutants. For more on that, check out our video, The History of the New Adventures of He-Man. Hero has entered the chat. He-Man was rebooted again in 2002 with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a series that was more rooted in the original look and feel of Eternia. Far more than New Adventures had been, She-Ra was conspicuously absent from both reboots. It wasn't until 2018 that She-Ra got a proper reboot of her own with the DreamWorks series She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. 52 episodes through 2020, the series reimagined the world of Etheria and repays He-Man's reboot snubs by leaving him out completely. In 2021, Amazon announced a new live-action She-Ra series in development. It is once again intended to be a complete reboot with no connection to the animated series. No further information is available as of this video. She-Ra lives on as an icon of power to kids who grew up with her, adults who admired her, and generations who have discovered her since. She is an unflinching champion of the oppressed and marginalized. She is an inspiration for people all over the world. She-Ra, Princess of Power, was born to be the most powerful woman in the universe, but even she couldn't save a franchise whose fan base was growing up and moving on, or counter the decision makers who engineered a disconnect with the masters of the universe into her DNA. He-Man's empire was built on making kids believe that, through him, they had the power. What She-Ra showed them was that sometimes you can't wait for power to be given to you, you have to take it for yourself. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. If you're in the position to help the channel grow, if you would like early access to the videos ad-free, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy and let us know in the comments down below if you were as confused as I was when She-Ra toys hit the market as to why they weren't designed to actually look like they were part of the Masters of the Universe. Why didn't She-Ra look more like Teela or Evil-Lyn or Sorceress? It's one thing to have adults on the internet in 2020. Is it 2020? 2022? Questioning corporate decision-making. How different the world might have been today if only they had asked a 10-year-old kid in Rhode Island for insight into brand management and product design. What year is it? It's an old end slate.
It is still 2022. I mean 2020.
I fucking know.
I messed up that joke. Cut.